everyone, and welcome to today's session in the Sciative Knowledge Series. Our distinguished speaker today is Dr. Tim J. Smith. He is the founder and CEO of Wiglaf Pricing and an adjunct professor of marketing and economics at DePaul University. He has authored several highly acclaimed books on pricing strategy. At Wiglaf Pricing, Dr. Smith provides pricing consultation services to companies across business verticals. He's the academic advisor to the Professional Pricing Society and member of the American Marketing Association and American Physical Society. Dr. Smith holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Southern Methodist University, a PhD from University of Chicago, and an MBA with high honors in strategy and marketing from the Chicago booth. Well, thank you, Tim, for making yourself available today and sharing your thoughts.
It is my honor, Anshu. It is my honor. Glad to say hello to everyone out there.
We welcome you to today's session. For the audience, you can follow live comments and post yours on Twitter using hashtag Sciative Knowledge and hashtag AskTim. Towards the end of the session, as time permits, we will take questions posted by the audience. Please make sure to include hashtag Sciative Knowledge, hashtag AskTim in your Twitter post. Now, today Tim is going to talk about how to strategically react to competitive price pressure. Now, in today's market scenario with increasing price transparency, competitive price pressure is at an all-time high. It's very critical for organizations to establish an optimal pricing policy to respond to competitive pressure. Tim, we appreciate you have chosen to share your thoughts on this very important subject. Over to you, Tim.
Well, thank you again, Anshu. It is a pleasure to be with Sciative Solutions today. So the question asked is, how should companies react to a competitor's price action? That is the question that I've been asked several times. What should I always do? Should I always lower my price? Should I always ignore the minimum? What is the optimal strategy? How should the firm react? And I thought that was a good question. To get to the answer, though, we need to ask ourselves first, what is value-based pricing? Question mark Rockman right here, saying, what is this question? What is this value-based pricing stuff all about? Well, it's about value. Value being the benefits you deliver less the price you extract. Focusing on how many benefits you deliver and what price can you extract. That's what value-based pricing is all about. But put in this terms, it's not really useful because we're still looking at total value. From an economic viewpoint, I would call that consumer surplus. That's not good enough. We need to get more granular, more fine-tuned, because people don't make decisions in a vacuum. They always have a trade-off. They always have a choice set. And so we have to look at value related to the choice set, related to the differential value. The differential value is what defines everything in value-based pricing. Sticking with the concept of differential value, we can put in some math. Use delta for differences, and I have the change in value being equal to the change in benefits between my offer and somebody else's, and the change in price between my offer and somebody else's. When will customers purchase? Because I deliver more value than the competitor. Seems pretty obvious. Put in some subscripts. Delta B goes into the benefits of my firm versus the alternative. Delta P goes into the price that I'm asking for, my firm, versus the alternative. I want it to be greater than zero because I want customers to purchase from me. Rearrange the equation, and we have a maximum price which we can extract from the market. That price being price of the alternative adjusted for my differential benefits. After considering both real and perceived, and I want to include that, not just the hard economic, but also the perceived, the behavioral economics, the perception of benefits, the perception of price. If I leave my customers better off on a differential value position, they will buy. Pretty straightforward. Now notice that this equation includes my competitor right there in the price of the alternative. But it also importantly includes my differences in benefits, what my firm offers compared to the other, what you offer compared to your competitor. So the big question is how do I adjust my prices relative to a new competitive entry or a competitor's price action? That's what question mark Rockman's trying to get at. We have the basis in value-based pricing. Let's add some dimensions. Let's go to competitive advantage. Well, competitive advantage implies my firm is making economic profits. Not just accounting profits, but economic profits. Profits that imply that an investor can make more money investing in my company or your company than all of your competitors. That's what an economic profit is. It comes from some form of relative advantage, relative strength that is inimitable and rare. Inimitable meaning a competitor can't copy it, and rare meaning they can't just go out there and buy it. If you have a competitive advantage, then you have the ability to increase the relative difference between the benefits you deliver to customers and the cost that you have to produce. This implies you can raise the benefits without raising your cost as much. You can lower the benefits you can lower the cost without lowering your benefits as much, or you can deliver fewer benefits but at a much, much, much lower cost. Or you deliver both higher benefits and you achieve lower costs. Now, obviously, this is not easy. This is difficult. One of the key questions people should ask is, do I actually have a competitive advantage? Sometimes you do. Many times you don't. The next part of the question is, do you have pricing power? Now, pricing power results in an unilateral ability within some range to set prices in the market regardless of your competitor's pricing. A unilateral ability to manage prices regardless of a competitor. Now, many firms have no pricing power, but some do. So let's explore how these two concepts play into competitive price reaction according to the concept of value-based pricing. Onto one dimension, I will put competitive advantage. Competitive advantage talks about your relative profitability to serve a customer segment. And the questions I want to know is, are you equal or weaker, or are you stronger? In the other dimension, I want to ask about pricing power. Compared to the alternative, how much more attractive are you? If you are really more attractive for some really compelling reason, you have some pricing power. Otherwise, you don't. What's an example of pricing power? Suppose you're driving into a town through the mountain woods, over a bridge, and you're selling billboard space. That first billboard is probably more valuable than the ones that come after it. So that first billboard may have some pricing power that allows it to have a slightly higher price, even if the next billboard drops their price. That's an example of pricing power. So let's play this out with some games. An Apple iPad versus the Samsung Galaxy. The year is 2011, 2 years back. Now, this is 1 year after the Apple iPad had just introduced itself in the market. That's an important little part, because think about this issue of creating a sustainable competitive advantage. In year one, Apple blew open the tablet computing space. People didn't even know what it was or how to use it. By the end of year one, in year two, Samsung comes out with a competitor. In year three, Microsoft comes out with its Surface. Within 3 years, a lot of the truly unique differentiation of the Apple was being competed away. But in year one, here's the question. Who has a competitive advantage? Apple or Samsung? Who has the ability to make more profit in that market? Now, unfortunately, I can't hear you answering me, but I think you'll say that Apple had a stronger position competitively. And you ask yourself, in 2011, when the Apple first came out, what did the market mostly want? The Samsung imitation or the real Apple iPad? And I think you'd agree that they had real Apple iPad as the goal. That would imply Apple had the pricing power. Now, how did Apple respond since they're in the stronger competitive position and they have greater pricing power? What actions did they take in the market when the Galaxy came out? Well, from a pricing viewpoint, they didn't take any actions. They left their price high while Samsung entered the market. That is, they ignored them. If you have both competitive advantage and pricing power, and a competitor enters into your market or lowers their price, you can, to some degree, just ignore them. That's nice for Apple. Most of us don't have an Apple brilliance and product design and product innovation. Let's look at something more mundane. How about charcoal? This is what we use in America to make barbecues, and cookouts, and grilling. Charcoal. Kingsford charcoal. Now, in this case study, look at Kingsford, and you realize that the whole charcoal market's about $350 million market in around 2000. Around 2000 is the year. Charcoal as a category wasn't really growing very fast, 1 to 3% annual growth. That is roughly the rate of growth of the U.S. population. Summer of 2000 came, and the charcoal market was kind of soft. It wasn't selling very well. Now picture yourself as the brand manager or the pricing manager of this charcoal. What do you do if you're not selling very much and it's a decent sized market? Well, you investigate a little bit more. Why am I not selling more? First piece of facts are, what's my market share? Kingsford had lots of different kinds, but its overall market share was about 56% of the market. Its competitors included Royal Oak and a bunch of private label, sold by Jewel and Safeway and Walmart or whatever. A bunch of private label companies out there. And the market share was great for Kingsford, but look at its prices. Prices were always higher than their competitors. Well, we got a category that's not growing very fast. I am premiumly priced. It's just charcoal. Is there really a difference? As a seller, you don't know. So who do you ask? You ask the customers. So you go to the customers and they ask the customers, how do you think about Kingsford? And they surveyed the customers, and the customers said, Kingsford is a high quality brand. It's something we trust. Only 13% of the market says private label is. And over the course of time, price differentials had shrunk. Kingsford had come, the private label had raised their prices, and Kingsford hadn't. So the price differentials had shrunk, market's soft, and you have to sell because you're not hitting your targets. You're not hitting your revenue targets. So what do you do in this position? Well, you think, I do have good market share. Customers do seem to like me. I may or may not have pricing power. I may. I don't know. Do I have a competitive advantage? Maybe. Hard to say on that one. But I'll tell you what they did do. They raised their prices roughly by 5% across the board. They spent more money on advertising, $7 million a year, and they emphasized their better barbecue flavor, the signature smoky steak taste that they get out of Kingsford. And to compete against gas, a completely different category, gas burners versus charcoal burners, they said we start faster, burns longer. Let's say start faster, not read faster. In-store promotions, there were some, but they were all related to the meat category. It was putting the charcoal next to the meat, reminding people, let's go barbecue this weekend. And they told the stores, the retailers, because they have to sell through the retailers, they told them that every time you sell something in the middle, meaning Royal Oak, you're either stealing a sale from your own private label or you're stealing a higher margin sale from Kingsford. So perhaps you don't want to sell Royal Oak. The results, they grew their sales to 73% of the market within 4 years. And they hit their revenue targets. So this is a great example of a company that instead of responding to a soft market and putting out lots of coupons and discounts and sell, they said, no, let's look at how we're perceived. Let's look at our pricing power. And they said, no, I'm not going to pay attention to trying to compete on price. I am going to actually raise my prices and focus on the benefits I deliver. That'll help me capture more market. Worked wonderfully for Kingsford. Pretty cool. So where was Kingsford in this little matrix? I think we would definitely agree that they had higher pricing power, but we'd be uncertain on their competitive advantage area. We do know that their choice was to actually increase prices overall. Shall we take a look at another one? I say yes. Let's take a look at Gilead versus AbbVie. Now, Gilead made Sovaldi, and AbbVie was coming out with the Vicera pack. What do these things do? They cure hepatitis C. They're actually cure it. And what happens if you don't cure it? Well, you usually die, eventually, of liver problems. So this is a pretty good deal. We're going to cure hepatitis C. Now, I'm not going to get into the drug pricing too much because there was quite a questions about why they price at $86,000. I'm just going to let you know that $86,000 is a small fraction of the cost of a liver transplant, which is the only other way you can solve liver disease from hepatitis C. Liver transplants are reported between $100,000 and $500,000. Gilead Sovaldi solved 95% of the case. This was a good value-based pricing exercise for them. So Sovaldi's out in the market, has a good solution. In comes AbbVie. AbbVie comes in at a lower price in 2015, about $10,000 a regimen lower priced. It also is called the Vicera pack. You got to take these pills. They got 4 of them. They got specific timing, and it was 4 to 6. Sometimes the Vicera pack required 6 pills a day rather than 4. Whereas the Gilead Sovaldi was just 1 pill a day. Let's go to our matrix. Think about where we sit there. Gilead Sovaldi versus AbbVie. Which one has a competitive advantage? That's a hard question. Let's think about just the cost. Which one has a cost advantage? Well, these are pills, just chemicals produced in a lab. They don't cost much to make. I know that there might be someone who wants to talk about the average cost, putting in the R&D cost, but that's not the cost we're looking at. We're looking at marginal cost. The marginal cost is virtually nothing. So I'd say that in terms of competitive advantage, that neither one has a cost advantage at all. They are both equal in terms of their ability to produce pharmaceutical regimens cheaply. Now let's go to the dimension of pricing power. Pricing power. Now, Gilead Sovaldi, you take 1 pill a day. AbbVie, you got to take 4 to 6. If you mess up, you don't cure. You still get hepatitis C. Now, I don't want, if you don't take the cure perfectly, you might have to repeat it. That doubles the cost. One would say easier regimen has a clear benefit advantage over 6 or 4 pills a day. In that sense, you would say they have clear greater pricing power. So that would put them in that category. Now, what did Gilead Sofbody do when AbbVie entered their space? They did something very similar to what Kingsford did. They mostly reiterated their value proposition. They told the customers about how great they are. They kept putting out FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, about taking 4 to 6 pills versus 1 pill a day, reiterating to customers of their better value proposition, of their better benefits delivered. In terms of price, they made a few price concessions, but not very much. So in that position of having somewhat equal competitive advantage but clear pricing power, this case study tells you the course of action to take is mitigate price competition by reiterating your value position. Got it? Let's do another case study. Let's take a look at Aramco versus Texas Oil Man in 2015, last year. Aramco. You know it only costs $7 a barrel to pull oil out of Saudi Arabia? In the Eagle Ford Shale, all their fracking, it costs somewhere between $40 and $60 a barrel to pull the oil out of the ground. One would clearly say Aramco has a competitive advantage when it comes to cost. It's a clear competitive advantage when it comes to cost. Texas, sorry, Texas is down here. Texas. Pricing power. Do you care where your oil comes from? No. So we have Texas here and Saudi Arabia there. What did Saudi Arabia do? They decided to defend their market share with a price reduction. What could Texas do? Not much. They just had to accommodate the price cut and reduce their future drilling. Took a few years, but they did. Painful for those oil men down in Texas and the fracking oil rigs. But you got to accommodate when you have neither a competitive advantage or a pricing power. In some cases, when you just don't have the product, well, here's one case, Eaton versus Meritor. Meritor came out with a new clutchless truck, along with a German company, ZF, I can't quite say the name, but it was a clutchless truck transmission. Eaton didn't have one. This is 2001. So what did Eaton do? Well, Eaton captured market share with huge price concessions and bundled offering, saying you have to buy this kind of transmission plus the others that would basically block Meritor and ZF on the market. So the terms of the contract competitively blocked Meritor and ZF from entering it into the market. What was the result? Well, a few years later, they were found guilty of anti-competitive practices in a lawsuit. Not really surprised, but it's painful. At least Eaton stayed in the market. Nokia, 2007 versus the iPhone. You know what happened to Nokia. They're just gone. They lost the market. So we have these different possible reactions, possible ways of managing it. Let's put it together in infographic, says question mark Rockman. There you go, an infographic right there. If you have competitive advantage and you have pricing power, you can ignore or possibly attack your competitor. Careful of attacking because price decreases hurt you and your competitors pretty bad. You can grow your customer base by either communicating your value proposition or possibly enriching your value proposition. If you have pricing power, but and don't have a competitive advantage, you need to mitigate price competition. Focus on communicating that value proposition. Focus on the branding or the why you're better and helping customers understand it. Now, if you don't have any pricing power, all you can do is defend your market share with price. And you want to signal that price is the bad way to compete. Evidence? Well, look at what happened in the flat screen display market. It lost $13 billion between 2004 and 2010 in just making the screens but competing on price. $13 billion. Poof, gone. That's a lot of money. If you have no pricing power and no competitive advantage, you'll just have to accommodate your competitor. And the point there is to survive until you can improve your value proposition and reemerge and compete again. Survive. Allow for some share losses, improve your value proposition, recompete tomorrow. Creative destruction, it happens. It's at the core of the social value of capitalism. Now, this concept of creative destruction long predates Clayton Christensen. It comes out of Schumpeter, an Austrian economist. He wrote his book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, around 1945, I believe. He coined this term creative destruction, talking about the point of capitalism is to unleash the ability to create new solutions to problems. And when that new solution is there, it may destroy the old firms that were in that market. It happens all the time in business. From a pricing point, know that your competitors will enter your market, especially if it's profitable. Know that customers and market disruptions will occur. When they occur, the relative value of the benefits you deliver change. These are just facts of capitalism. On the positive side, there are also opportunities within capitalism because you, too, can enter new markets, create market disruptions, and improve or change or redesign your benefits. Price is just one lever in the marketing mix. Think about other things, like the benefits inherent in the product, its features, its functionality, what it does for people, how it makes people feel, where it's distributed, how easy it is to get, promotions, how do you help people understand what it is you're delivering and stimulate those purchases? All right, so you've been listening to one part of what I'd call the pricing framework, and that is the competitive price reaction matrix, which is a clear part of your pricing strategy. What kind of strategy do you want to utilize to compete for your target customers against your defined competitor sets, leveraging your company's strengths? That will define your competitive price reaction strategy, part of your pricing strategy. I went a little fast, but thank you for attending, and let's open it up for some questions. What do you say?
Definitely, Tim. What you presented is a very succinct approach for organizations to come up with their competitive pricing strategy. Uh, I think the matrix that you mentioned, the competitive price reaction matrix, that picks two very non picks independent factors, your competitive advantage and pricing power, and depending upon where you feel you are, which quadrant you are based in, it gives a very clear direction towards how you need to go about framing up your pricing strategy. Now, One question I have here, Tim, and I know some tweets have also mentioned this question, which is how should companies go about figuring their pricing power and their competitive advantage? See, pricing power, yes, you might be taking inputs from your customers, you know exactly why your customers purchase from you, how you are better in terms of delivering value to your customers. But you also mentioned that it's important to translate that into an economic factor. So, can you talk about some quantitative methods to quantify pricing power? And similarly, are there any quantitative methods that can be applied to quantify the competitive advantage that a company has?
Let's talk about competitive advantage from a high level viewpoint and then try to address some of the more detailed approaches. Okay? Now, competitive advantage, as mentioned, focuses on a relative form of strength that your firm would have. In the past, historically, like medieval times, competitive advantage dealt specifically with land and natural resources. So the wealth of a kingdom was dependent upon the size of the kingdom and what that kingdom could mine from the ground, grow from the ground, or the rivers that it could actually tax. That would be the form of competitive advantage. In some ways, Aramco still has that basic mineral rights, land-oriented competitive advantage. But we don't live in medieval times anymore. We've moved forward. The next major revolution was the competitive advantage created out of assets. Think Ford, think manufacturing plants, think railroads. For now, you have competitive advantage based upon assets that enable you to reduce the cost to produce something far, far below your competitors. After the asset revolution came the intellectual property revolution. Now think about IT and how IT is completely intellectual property driven. The value of the firm is having the better intellectual property to create a solution for customer needs. This would be Salesforce, Oracle, Data.com, all of these IP-related value orientations compared to the alternative. Think Uber, which is basically a platform where the value comes out of now, not just IT, but something else. That something else becomes process and people. So the process and people aspect, that coordination, that ability to unleash the talents of your team to meet customer needs is a form of competitive advantage comparing Uber versus a traditional taxi cab. Or to stick with a case study in India, compare Maru cabs versus the standard black cab in India, where Maru cab put up signs, and their competitive advantage was, we will charge you what the meter says, we will not drink and drive, and we will take a shower before we drive people around. Compared to the average taxi cab at the time, it was considered a revolutionary improvement. That was, again, people and process, not just simply hard assets. So that's a better discussion of competitive advantage. How do you measure that? Well, go to the Kingsford case and think about how they had to test it. And really what they were testing was their pricing power. That unilateral ability within some range to set prices in the market regardless of the competitor's pricing. Now, pricing power can somewhat be measured, largely improved by the actions which the firm takes. How do you increase the benefits you deliver? Is that about helping them understand your benefits? Is it about helping them receive it better? There are tools for pricing accuracy, like conjoint analysis, that can help identify if you do have pricing power in the market. or conjoint or choice, discrete choice methods, exchange value models, sometimes even statistics can help get that pricing accuracy out there in the market. But the pricing power actually results in something underlying those differential benefits, that differential pricing ability. That is an actual change in the value proposition. So it's a slightly different question. Thank you. That was a nice question. Do you have others?
Thanks, Tim. Yes, it does answer my question. And moving on to another question that has been posted on Twitter by Mr. KRD Praveen. He would like to know, in strategy of accommodating, we may get in similar situation as Eaton, anti-competition issue. How to avoid that?
Well, yes, that is a problem. So we're talking Eaton, where Eaton simply didn't have the product. And don't get me wrong, I love Eaton, okay? I love Eaton. They didn't have the product. Their bundling methodology was considered anti-competitive. Now, here comes the key issue about bundling and anti-competitive law, as I understand it. You're allowed to do as much bundling as you want to, as long as it's customer focused in terms of customer benefits. But when the bundling can be identified as being anti-competitive, you lose out. Like price signaling. You can do as much price signaling to your customers as you want to, but when the price signaling is identified to be majority focused on competitive price management, then you can fall afoul of the law. Now this is a challenge. It would be nice to say that there's clean line of demarcation, but it's not. It's a bit more complicated than that, and I would have a hard time addressing his specific issues in my webinar. In this case, though, Eaton made contract. It was similar to the case of Intel back around 2000, 1990, where Intel would know how many chips a company like HP or Dell would need to make. And so they would basically say, we need 95% of the market. You have to buy all of this, or you don't get the rebate at the end of the year. And in doing so, they would basically block out AMD from the market, allowing them to compete. And like it's often been said, everyone likes a little competition. And Intel managed that approach. Now, was that they're illegal? Again, rebates are normal, but when it's being done purely for anti-competitive reasons, or it can be argued that it is, you have problems. Similar with Eaton. Bundling is fine, but if the bundle is set such that you're blocking out your competitors from the market, they then have a case to sue you in the courts. And U.S. law is very different than EU law. EU law is a bit more stringent than U.S. law, I'd say, although there might be other people who disagree with me. It's a completely different story if I'm talking the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, or Malaysia, where price collusion is completely normal. Still, if you're a multinational company, you can't price collude in Nokia and be okay working in the U.S. There'd be problems. I wish I could answer your question better, sir, but thank you.
Tim, I think you've covered several aspects of the anti-competition aspects, and you're very right in saying that there is a very thin line, and if you are using your bundling in a manner which is intended to blocking competition rather than delivering greater value to the customer, that certainly is the case for an anti-competition piece. Now, along the same lines, Tim, recently there has been a lot of talk in the e-commerce space about this map pricing. the minimum advertised pricing, where the manufacturers, they want to have a control on the prices that retailers set, and they're saying that, okay guys, you cannot price below map price. What are your thoughts on this map pricing, and is it reducing the retailers' capabilities to deliver greater values to customer? Is it really customer friendly?
It's a bit more challenging than that. Hence, it's not a single answer. Let's talk about a case where map pricing is really necessary. You have certain products, like for instance, a washing machine. I don't buy washing machines very often. I don't think you do either, Anshu. So when we go to purchase a washing machine, we need somebody to educate us on how a washing machine works, right? Or the changes in washing machine technology. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. Now, in those cases, the washing machine salesperson is actually adding value in communicating directly on the floor of the warehouse what that washing machine does. If I, as a customer, can go to, this being the States, Best Buy, do all my investigation about the features and functions of a washing machine, then leave Best Buy, go to Amazon and order one online. That meant that all of the cost incurred of communicating the benefits was incurred by Best Buy, while Amazon sold it to me cheaper because it was priced cheaper without a minimum advertised price. In this case, MAP is necessary for proper functioning of the market to enable the manufacturer to communicate the benefits to the end customer. Because without it, Best Buy salespeople would have no reason to understand their products and no reason to try to communicate to me, a customer, what this product does versus the other one. So I value, as a customer, the information from the salesperson, and a map ensures that the person giving, the company providing the sources for that value-added sale is returned with an investment on doing that. Therefore, that value-added sale is paid for. If it wasn't, nobody would do it. And as a customer, I would be left uninformed. So in certain categories, minimum advertised prices improve the sales by improving the value communication, which could not have been done other ways. In other companies, sometimes even in the other industry, that makes no sense because you're going for a spray and pray. Put it out everywhere, push it up high, make them sell it. So if I'm moving into beer or cola, soda pop, so many different names for carbonated beverages. When you move into that, there's no value-added sale. There, it's just pure distribution efficiency. In those markets, a MAP process doesn't make sense because you're after distributional effectiveness. But it's a bit trickier.
Absolutely. So you make a very great point that if it would work against the interest of players like Best Buy, who put in all the efforts to educate the customers, and the customers in the end, if they make a purchase decision from Amazon, and if it's because of lower prices, the incentive at Best Buy to educate the customers will go down, which is very right. Now, because of map pricing, does it also kind of take the focus away from players like Best Buy to add additional value to customers beyond what the basic product offers? So let's say, for example, in the case of washing machines, how about Best Buy gives some extra product for better cleanliness of the machines, or does some extra effort on the delivery, better delivery of the item, or maybe provide some after sale services that will add additional value to the customer, so that customers have an incentive to purchase from them rather than purchase from the other low price provider.
That is the concept, yes.
Yes.
Now, that's an area where value-added sales makes sense, and MAP was perfectly designed for those kinds of problems. Let's talk about a different area where MAP also works, but it works in favor of the manufacturer, not the distributor. In the first case, washing machines, it's about rewarding the distributor for value-added selling. In the second case where MAP makes sense, it's about increasing distributional intensity, which may sound strange, but let me explain. HP Inc. has a very strong MAP policy versus HP Printers does not. The issue is, back here, HP Inc., if you need the ink, you have competitive advantage already because the customer already bought your printer. You have some pricing power. So now the whole goal is to try to get ink out everywhere and encourage everyone to sell it. But you're not going to capture more market share if one distributor competes with the other distributor for lower prices. It won't improve HP's market share for the ink. What will improve HP's market share for the ink is the sale of HP printers up front. Now, when you look at printers, there we're sitting on these other categories for the HP printers. I haven't tried to figure out where they are yet, but we could think about that if we wanted to. So on the printer side, they're more competing on price to get you into the second part of the two-part tariff. Actually, it's more of a timed arrangement. Forgive me.
Yes. Thanks, Tim. We have our next question from Runmai, and she would like to know if my competitor is offering a product similar to mine, then on what aspects should I compete? Should it be price or should it be my offering? Let me just add one more point to this particular question that Mrunmay has raised, which is the competition price reaction matrix. Would it take a different flavor when you're looking at a growth industry versus a saturated / stable or mature industry? Because I think Mrunmay's question probably have different answers based upon what phase of the industry we are talking about.
Well, that's why I put up the Apple case study, because this was an extremely high growth market. And Apple could ignore them rather than price compete. Now, usually, if you're selling some sort of technology, you see a high growth market, you think go purely after market share. Just go for market share, you'll make money up on the other end. That is a long investment horizon that I'm very cautious of suggesting to anyone, because usually it doesn't work, but sometimes it works wonderfully. The investment horizon is just too long. In this high growth market, the competitive reaction matrix worked well. The Kingsford case study is as mature as you're going to get. I mean, it's growing at the rate of the population. Again, the competitive price reaction matrix works the same. So the calculus of how to react to competitor entry still folds along these dimensions. Its implementation, however, will depend upon your corporate strategy. That's why we have this viewpoint, separating out your corporate strategy. What is your goal? In the long run, do you see economies of scale, scope, or learning? In the long run, is there a net market network effect that would reward the market winner, therefore reward market share? That's a corporate strategy decision about how you want to position yourself in the market. that would affect your skim, neutral, and penetrate positioning, which might go into your calculus on how to react to a competitor. But generally, I tell customers, go for neutral unless you have an extremely compelling story for any other market position.
Absolutely, what you're saying makes absolute sense. The strategy of competing in the market and where you want to position yourself also depends upon your overall uh, business strategy, where exactly you want to position your business, and rest of the price positioning will follow accordingly. Now, uh, Tim, there is a very high focus in industry these days on automating the pricing strategy and making use of the technology tools to better manage pricing strategy. Now, many companies have recently taken on this route, or at a stage where they want to make heavy investments in this area. Now, what would be your suggestion to these companies in terms of taking on this route? What should be a great roadmap for these companies to follow when they're taking the technology route for managing their pricing?
When I look at pricing technology, they're mostly down at the lower end of this framework. Thinking about market pricing, how do I set my price right in this first place? Am I going to use, if I'm using dynamic pricing, what algorithm will I use to constantly update my price list? Followed in with price variance policy, what kind of analysis will I use to inform my discounting decisions? What kind of analysis will go into my couponing and rebate decisions? And finally, price execution. How do I put that right price in front of the right customer at the right time? So a lot of the automation space is down at these lower spaces in the pricing framework. Here.
Yes, Tim, uh, you're absolutely right. A lot of automation is happening at the lower end of the execution spectrum, where a lot of emphasis is being put on analytics piece, automating the analytics piece or the execution piece, where once I have figured out what is the right strategy for me, how can I use automation tools to better execute my strategy that I have tried and tested. Absolutely bang on. Now,
I should say that this is exactly the subject of my next book, Pricing Done Right. It'll come out in August of this year.
can you talk a little bit about the book?
Yeah, the Pricing Done Right helps explain to executives how to implement a pricing framework into their company that drives value-based pricing all the way down from ideation to execution. How to create feedback loops that informs your strategy based upon facts in the field. Whether those facts are created analytically, through surveys, through research, through interviews, feedback, but informing that pricing strategy, informing that competitive strategy, informing how you actually set those prices, manage your discounts, and execute it. Who's involved in the decision? How do they help them make those decisions? What are these decisions? That is exactly the subject of my next book coming out in August. I hope to share it with this team when it arrives. I'm very anxious, Anshu.
So are we, Tim. We are looking forward to your book. I think you're covering some great topics in your book. Rolling out a great pricing strategy is as equally important as framing one strategy. We have one last question which is being posted by Mr. Adil Manan, and what he would like to know is how can we strategize the pricing in the IT industry where a lot of providers do give services. So I think what you would like to know is when we are offering intangible items to our customers, which, see, when you're dealing with products, it's very easy to differentiate and deliver greater value to customers through your product features. But when you're delivering intangible services to customers, the comparison probably happens at a different scale. So in that kind of scenario, what should the pricing strategy focus on? Any tips, Tim?
There are thoughts. And the first question I have is, are you talking about pricing of IT services or IT products offerings?
IT services.
Yes. And now you're talking about selling people's expertise. And I just wrote 2 articles on that. One talking about how to price per billable hour, and the other one talking about project pricing. And it's very clear in the market that if you go towards project pricing, you get a better outcome. But in the project pricing space, you now have shifted from selling certain skill sets at certain dollars, where it is a competitive, in the skill sets per dollar space, you're stuck at no pricing power, and you may or may not have competitive advantage, but you're down to here in the skill sets per dollar space. When you actually move into selling something of greater value, like the project, creative projects, you suddenly move into a place where you have some pricing power. And there you can push up your rates a lot, and you can also mitigate price competition by stating, I'm going to deliver this solution, not I'm going to deliver these people. So the high impetus for service sector IT people is moving out of the billable rates per hour, where your defense will be, look at how great my resumes are, into, I'm going to fulfill this project scope, and this is the outcomes and benefits of fitting that project scope within this time with that much resource.
Okay, Tim. Tim, we have another very interesting question just now posted by Enrique Balanzatigui. I'm sure I've not pronounced his name correct. His question is, how to react if competitor offers new good features to current product? Reduce price, highlight other features.
So now the competitors coming into the market with new features, and are they better would be the question I have. And if they're better, then suddenly your pricing power, where did my pointer go? Your pricing power is down here. Then the question is, what's going on with price? Already you're at the defend or accommodate space. I've seen this happen several times. If the competitor is considered to be reasonable in the market, as in a reasonable solution, you're just stuck accommodating. If the new competitor is not considered reasonable for your target market, then suddenly you pop back up to here and you can ignore them. So the key question I have for that person is, for your chosen target market, is the new competitor offering something attractive or not?
But Tim, here, see, when you are comparing whether competition offer is more attractive, we're assuming it's apples to apples comparison. See, it's very much possible that you might be offering 1 or 2 features better than competition, and competition is also offering 1 or 2 features that are better than your offering. So it's not exactly apples to apples. You have certain advantages, and your competition also has certain advantages.
Here, this would not be the matrix which I would talk about it. I would actually talk more about pricing, positioning, and where you are in the market. So in your corporate strategy, back up here, you have a key question about who really is my target customer. Know that some customers are more the target customer of your competitor, and in other cases, you have the advantage. So your goal from a corporate strategy is to help identify where your actual natural market sits, your core market sits. So that when it goes into pricing, you can now capture your core market and ignore your competitors in that core market. Now we have a core market, we have a potential market, and then we have the contested market on the outside. That potential market, you might be able to lower your price to capture them. Why are you lowering your price? Because the customer is making some trade-offs, which would imply you have a discount variance policy to help identify when customers have the trade-offs. But when you enter the rating zone, the competitor's space, that's just pure bloody price war, and no one wins.
Yes. So basically, the idea is to identify who your core customers are, what your core market is, and what is really important for your core market. And if you have the right features and functionalities and you have pricing power with your core market, you don't need to worry. Otherwise, it's a uphill task for you.
Correct.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. We are all out of time, so I would like to thank you for this highly informative session today. I'm sure the audience would have loved the insights they have picked from you today. There was a very high level of participation from everyone, and I'm leaving out some questions because of lack of time. But thank you again for this wonderful session today. A recording of this session would be available on YouTube for audience to refer to later. Uh, Thank you so much, Tim. Just for the audience, this knowledge series is brought to the audience by Sciative Solutions. Sciative helps companies compete and grow profitably through its scientific solutions and services. Please keep checking sciative.com for future sessions in the Sciative Knowledge series. Our next session is on June 6th at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and our speaker is Dr. Raj Shivakumar, and we'll be talking about best practices and current status of airline pricing. So thank you all for joining today, and see you again in our next session. And thank you once again, Tim, for the wonderful session we have had today.
Thank you, and glad to say hello to all of y'all. Be happy.
Thank you, Tim. Bye bye.